Halloween
Forever.
All right. Good evening, Steven. How's it going?
I'm doing good, Brian. How are you?
I'm all right. I could be doing better, but we'll get it. Well, I won't bring you down quite yet.
Okay.
Steven, answer me this. Riddle me this, Batman. How in the North Pole, how do you make sure you keep the old flu bug at bay up in the North Pole?
Oh.
How would you suppose folks up there might do a thing like that?
Let's see. For some reason, I just like a real answer. I just immediately went to like reindeer stew. I'm like, I bet that's probably really fucking good. Like,
yeah. I'm thinking more, less dietary.
I don't know. You glue it away?
No, wrong, double wrong. Proper. You gotta practice proper sanitization. I should have practiced saying that word before I delivered it on microphone. Welcome, boils and ghouls, to what promises to be a dog shit minisode of Halloween is Forever. I'm Brian.
Santa. No, I'm Steve.
Yeah, wait a second. I got really excited for a second. My ears perked up there. I thought you were Santa for a second. Yeah, that was rough. Should have practiced that one in the mirror a couple times.
Sure. Yeah.
Before getting on air here, and really bit me in the ass. Not the first time, won't be the last. But you might be.
I got one.
Yeah.
I just made this one up.
Yeah.
I just made this one up.
Please.
How do the elves clean the brewery at the North Pole?
I have no idea.
With Star Santa.
That is a very brewer specific joke about a particular, not even the chemical, but the brand name of a specific chemical that is used for sanitation in a brewery, guys. I'm sure there are 4 to 5 people who mildly chuckled out there.
Hell yeah.
In podcast land. And you might be asking yourself, why are these two chuckle fucks over here talking about the North Pole? The reason is we are talking this evening about a little flicky from the year of our Lord 1951, The Thing from Another World. For those of you who are vintage sci-fi fans, grew up watching old spooky movies on the maybe the Turner Classic Network over there, you might be familiar with this one, and you might know that it takes place primarily at the motherfucking North Pole. So that's why we're talking North Pole today. That's why we're talking spooky alien sci-fi shit. But as always, before we get into all that nonsense, we got to do a couple things at the top of the some bitchin' show. Steven, are you sipping on anything over there? I will warn you, I do not have a beer. I have an alternate beverage this evening. So just to soften the blow, I don't want you to get too upset.
I should have went alternate beverage because if y'all been following the show, you know that I had the Roan Dog, and Roan Dog threw off my beer buying schedule. Just wasn't buying beer regularly because I wasn't drinking, and then I ran out of beer.
You had the Crovis.
Yeah. And now I went digging in the fridge and I found something at the back, and it's a really old can of Focal Banger by The Alchemist. And boy, it is drinking terrible. And I don't know if you can see it, but boy, it just has like just shit everywhere. Like the
chunks, particulate has globulated. All manner of precipitation is taking place in that glass. That's a damn shame.
Yeah, it's not good. It was, and I also just started kicking myself because when I first started pouring it, it was pouring like a clear West Coast, which is not what the beer is. And I said, "Oh yeah, that's right. You have to shake these cans a little bit." And then as soon as I shook it, it just it clumped all out, and I realized I shouldn't have done that. I should have just drank it as a West Coast, because it's been in the fridge so long, I fucking cold crashed it.
Well, there's a lot of stuff that's settled out of that. Those are obviously beers that are meant to be drank as fresh as humanly possible. And bad start all around. Garbage joke, garbage beer. It might be a blessing in disguise here that I am not drinking a beer this evening, mostly because I am already real tired. Had a terrible night's sleep last night. Back was hurting me. Had a long day at work today. And we're recording, well, only slightly later than we normally do. But to be completely transparent, your boy ready to go sleepy night.
Hell yeah.
So I thought, if I get a beer in me, I'm just going to be fucking real tired. So instead, I'm going with a little tea, little herbal tea, because I don't want to be up too late. I actually had a little Diet Coke action before this, but I am drinking out of a big spooky. I'll turn it around so you can see in the Discord here. I got a nice big spooky jack-o'-lantern mug. But I am drinking a little lemon ginger tea here, just to keep the old vocal cords lubricated and give me something to sip on. But also, don't want to go to sleep quite yet. Don't want to stay up all night. So just liquid for my tum-tum.
Yeah.
That's where I'm at.
Makes sense.
Yeah. Okay. A couple other things. First of all, guys, we've got some exciting news regarding our April Showdown episode. For those of you who are new to the podcast, or maybe just dabble occasionally, and you might be saying to yourself, what the fuck is a Showdown episode? And I say, hold your fucking horses. I'm about to tell you. Here's what it is. We put out some tasty, sticky, spicy, sometimes a little chunky content out on the interwebs every son of a bitchin' Monday. However, the first Monday of every month, little different. We do what's called a Showdown episode. It starts out by spinning our old spinny ass wheel of topics. We got a spinny ass wheel. It's got about a bajillion different topics on it. Everything from horror subgenres to performers to tropes to whatever. We spin it 3 times. We get 3 potential topics. We throw them out on the social medias for our friends and listeners to vote on. Once we get a vote, they pick that topic. That is our Showdown topic for the month. Then me, Steve, and perhaps either our guest or sometimes our collective Patreon community picks a movie. So we have 3 movies, and we go into that Showdown episode. We each argue why our movie is the best representation of that particular topic. And, a couple DDTs onto the steel chair might happen. Somebody might get a fucking, moonsault off the top rope. Ultimately, a slobber knocker will ensue. We will vote. Someone will end up taking home that son of a bitchin' championship strap for that month. For April, if you tuned in last week, you already know the topic that got picked and then, was one of our 3 topics and then got voted into existence for the April Showdown is Creatures from the Deep. This is one of the few topics that have actually come back around. We've already done this one before. Mm-hmm. And of course, the rules clearly state in our bylaws in section 148, lines 18 through 27, it clearly states that you cannot pick the same movie. Again, we cannot do another, even if it's been involved in another Showdown episode, we cannot do the same movie over again. So there will be some movies that are off the table because we've done them in the past. For this topic, not to mention ones that are I guess adjacent topics. So we're gonna be digging a little deeper here, is what I'm saying. And we're excited about that. Also, Stephen, why don't you tell the boils and ghouls at home who's going to be joining us? We're going to actually have a couple of guests, a couple 2-tree guests, for the April Showdown. That'll be exciting. Tell them what who they're going to be.
Yeah, so we're going to bring on the girls from the Final Girls podcast, Sarah and Kelly. They'll be joining us, but every week they put out a podcast in which they take a look at a film that involves a final girl and then just discuss the film, within the context. They just put out an episode on that film Companion. I don't know if you saw that, Brian.
Don't think so.
It's pretty good. I'm doing a write up for it right now for our patrons, but yeah, it's a good film, and they had different takes on it than I do, but I think we all agree that it's a good film overall. Then, yeah, but it's interesting.
Where's that one streaming? I gotta put that on the old list.
I believe that one just came out of theaters, and it's on the premium VOD right now.
Gotcha.
But yeah, I don't think it's hit like a streaming platform. If it did, maybe it was Hulu. But yeah, otherwise, yeah, it's a pretty solid flick. It has one of the actresses who is also in Heretic, which I also found to be a pretty strong film, but it's not my favorite.
Yeah,
don't know that I'll go back to it too much, but still worth a watch.
All right. I'll put it on the old letterbox here. But yeah, so that'll be exciting in the glorious month of April. We will have our friends from the Final Girls podcast, Sarah and Kelly, on to talk about Creatures from the Deep. So tune in next week wherein we talk about actually which movies we're going to do. So each one of us will reveal our picks. We'll reveal Sarah and Kelly's picks. We typically give our guest first pick, and then Steven and I will announce our picks, and then I'll give you a little time to watch if you want to watch any and all of those movies prior to the April Showdown episode. If you want to get involved over there on the social medias, if you do plumb the depths that are just the disgusting fucking cesspool that is social media these days. No judgment at all. I can't kick it. I try. I can't kick it fully. It's a brain disease. Go ahead and check out our brain disease pages at Halloween is Forever on whatever of the fucking social medias you might still be on. We don't really do the X anymore.
Nope.
Cause all the Nazis over there, but we do Threads. We do a Blue Sky, right? We do an Instagram. I've got to get on there and do a little bit more on the Instagram. I shared a couple things this week, but I haven't been doing jack shit on the Instagram because, again, I've been trying to eliminate some of the brain rot from my life. But if you want to help us pick our topics, if you want to suggest topics, you want to slide in the old DMs and suggest topics, or even suggest a movie we do for a minisode, not unlike we are doing this very evening, you can do that. Slide on in. We'll check those DMs. Or if you're just like, nah, I don't do any of that nonsense, I want to send you one of them old-fashioned emails. You can do that too at halloweenisforeverpod@gmail.com. We also have some exciting stuff coming on the old, actually just kicked off on the old Patreon. Steven, why don't you do the folks of service, tell them what's going on over the Patreon.
Yeah, you log on to patreon.com/halloweenisforever. And you get a whole bunch of things if you pay that $5 a month and get that Rascal tier.
Ooh. Rascal tier. Things. Stuff.
Yep.
Other things.
Bunch of things. Bunch of stuff. And you get to collect it all and shove it in your hole. And it's great. It's great.
Whatever hole you want.
Yeah. We don't judge. Yeah. We don't judge.
Make yourself airtight with our stuff over on the Patreon. That's a shirt. TM.
Consume it as you see fit. We are not here to judge.
Insume is a combination of consume and insert. And that's when it's your mouth hole. That's when it's your mouth hole. You can't consume things with your other holes. There's only one hole you can consume something with, because most of the time when you put stuff in other holes, always comes back out. I've noticed that. It comes right back out the same hole. If you put something in your mouth hole, it comes out a different hole, typically.
Yeah, typically.
That's a special thing about your mouth hole.
Your mouth hole is a magical portal. You can take it anywhere.
I'm an advocate for all holes, but there's one special thing about mouth hole is when you put something in, don't come back out, that same hole. Different hole.
Not usually.
Not usually. Sometimes it does, I guess.
Sometimes you throw up. Sometimes you vomit.
Sometimes you blow chunks, guys. Forgot about that.
Insume until you're airtight is a
Discord. The Discord's really digging the direction of this conversation.
Discord's not into it right now.
Dan's giving us a face palm.
But you know what? Yeah, insume until you're airtight is definitely going to be a shirt now. Like it's just going to be that text. It's not even going to be any graphic or anything. It's just insume until you're airtight.
For some reason, too, when you said that sentence, because we just mentioned it, we were talking about off air. For some reason, I immediately thought of a picture of Kristen Stewart, dude, needs to be on the shirt. Kristen Stewart, insume until you're airtight. I don't know why. Completely irrelevant. I think it's because of underwater. Yeah, I'm thinking about like the suction and the things that happen underwater and compression and all that.
But you know what? That might also be something crazy her character from Crimes of the Future would say as well.
Oh yeah, I could see her saying something like that.
She's such a weirdo in that film, and I love it. I don't particularly.
That fucking movie rules.
Yeah, I don't particularly love her all the time, but her in that film is fantastic.
Yeah.
Anyway, jump on the Patreon, and then you can get all the things to Insume, which includes reviews and recos. You get on the Discord and watch episodes happen live, so you can see Brian's pumpkin mug, and you can watch us break down into just disgusting bodily function and
as I slurp out of a giant gourd.
Yeah, Brian slurps out of a giant gourd as we hash out what it means to Insume, and you get to watch all that happen live. And on top of it all, you get an exclusive monthly podcast. And this month, we are starting our new series, The 90s is Forever. And we're starting it off with a bang of a little film called Silence of the Ham.
This is an experience.
A comedy parody of horror films. Ooh.
It is. And if you like any of the scary movie franchise, imagine that, but you can't believe it exists. Yeah. Like it's not really funny. It's more puzzling than funny. Yeah, it's puzzling. It's most of the things. If you're not born in the 90s and you didn't, live through the 90s in Italy,
it's not going to hit. It's not going to make a lot of sense for you at all.
Yeah.
Like even thinking about Scary Movie, like Scary Movie 2 has an extended bit that is just mocking a old Nike commercial, and nobody has thought about that commercial in forever. And so if you watch that movie and you see that bit, you go, I don't get it. I guess it's kind of funny, but I don't get it.
Yeah.
That's all of Silence of the Hams.
That's 100% of them. And there is roughly 8 jokes a minute. Rapid fire.
Yeah.
The good thing about these Patreon exclusive podcast series that we've done, Now 90s Forever, prior to this, we did one where I made Steve watch 10 different right-wing Christian propaganda religious horror movies, Christian horror movies specifically. And then Steve, before that, made me watch all the Fast and the Furious movies. The great thing about it is you don't have to watch any of these movies. And in fact, I would, in most cases, strongly urge that you don't. Steer clear of them at all costs, and you could just listen to us make fun of them, and that's more fun than actually watching them.
Yeah.
With a few rare exceptions.
Yeah. Some of them are so fucking wacky, you just have to see them to believe them. But a lot of them are just will waste your time and make you feel bad on the inside. So,
yeah. Spoiler alert, none of them made Steve accept Jesus Christ as his personal Lord and Savior.
No, that didn't happen. But what they may have done is they may have made me design the newest shirt I dropped on the TeePublic.
What is that?
I don't know if you saw it. I did tag you on the Instagram reel I put up, but it's just more brain damage of taking modern art and applying it to Garfield. And then because remember, they made me take down My Balls Are Full of Pee shirt.
Strongest shirt we've ever done, by the way.
Yeah, they made me take down that shirt, so now I put up a new one, and it just simply says "Great at releasing farts," but the GARF is highlighted, so you know it's a Garf.
Good. That's good. That's a good one. Yeah. I always forget we do have all those shirts over there on TeePublic. Many of which are inside jokes from very early episodes that occasionally I'll go back and remember, like Nothing Gets You High Like Drugs with a Z. It's just got like a hypodermic needle on it. Like there's a lot of good. It's a lot of good ones out there.
It's a mix of my own brain damage and horror movies. So yeah, check out TeePublic and search Halloween is Forever on there.
Yep. All right. Yeah, join us over there on the Patreon, patreon.com/always forever. We'd love to have you. All right. This movie, speaking of Patreon, was I believe it was suggested by one of our patrons. Is that accurate, Steve?
Yes, it was suggested by Dan, who's in the Discord right now.
Okay, I thought so. I wasn't sure.
He originally wanted us to do this as like our punishment episode because for the month of March, he is our current champ. You know, I mean, he shares it with all of the patrons, but because he was the one that picked the winning movie, he gets kind of the duties of assigning what our punishment role is. And he said, hey, I really love this movie, and I know you guys love this movie. So why haven't you done this movie? Please do this movie. And I said, yeah, Dan, you're right. But we're not doing it for a punishment. It's not a punishment film. We'll just do it. You're a patron. You can just request us to do movies, and we'll put you at the top of the list.
Yeah. Yep, I recall that as well now. And so I'm excited to do this one because, like you said, I think we all like this flick a lot. This is actually, I mentioned The Thing from Another World from 1951. I would put in the category, at least for me, as like kind of a cozy, comfy, certainly a nostalgic film for me watching it as a kid, but this is like kind of a cozy horror movie for me. And I know we've talked about it quite a bit in the past, but 50s and, early 60s sci-fi are very much comfort movies for me. And weirdly enough, I was watching this earlier today, and my wife and kids and some friends, they went to the lovely the artist previously known as the Carnegie Science Center. I forget what it's now going to be called.
Oh yeah. Two fucking Jags Science Center.
Yeah, two Jags Science Center. They were there, and I get a nice picture of my daughter standing beside Robbie the Robot, because they have like a life-size Robbie the Robot there. And we had just watched Forbidden Planet I'd watched it for the 100th time. She watched it for the first time, and she loved Robbie the Robot. How do you not love Robbie the Robot? And she had my wife send a picture and said, Maeve wanted me to send you this picture. She said that you watched a movie with this robot in it. And I was like, that's the cutest thing I've ever seen in my fucking life. So that movie, Forbidden Planet, Think for Another World, original Invasion of the Body Snatchers, all very much comfy, cozy horror movies for me. Horror sci-fi movies.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah, because I mean, horror is not as big, aside from like Vincent Price things and the Universal monsters. It's still all pretty much everything in the genre. All the genre works features some sort of blinky, flashy lab. So yeah. If it's going to have a laboratory, it's all going to be blinking and flashing on the inside. So yeah.
Yeah, this one directed, and I was actually looking at the old Letterboxd here, and forgive me, I do not know how to pronounce the last name, but it's Christian. Is it Nibi? I'm not really sure. Yeah. It's NY.
Not going to get talked about on this podcast anymore.
I'm not going to fucking work about that anymore. So I only know him from this movie. He has some other directing credits, but I think it's safe to say this was the film he's most known for, but I think he did do some TV. I think I maybe remember reading that he did some episodes of like Gunsmoke and some other popular TV shows. But as far as the rest of his directorial films here, not a lot of his feature-length films, not a lot of fanfare for. We have Hell on Devil's Island, which when I read that immediately reminded me of when Homer and his buddies start a biker gang, and they're coming up with names, and it's like Hell Satans, Christ Punchers, like all these just like repetitive, like Hell Satans, because this is Hell on Devil's Island, and I just thought that was a little repetitive sounding. Young Fury, which sounds a little horny, but I bet it's not. And then Six Gun Law. I was like, oh, maybe I've seen that before. Nope, nobody's seen that. So really, he is mostly known for, and an Operation CIA, which also no one has seen. First to Fight, no one has seen. So this is pretty much what he did, and then he got into some TV after that, from what I can tell.
Yeah, Operation CIA sounds like a Mystery Science Theater film, but I don't think it actually is. It just sounds like
it
one.
does sound like it.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, for some reason it sounds familiar. It does star Burt Reynolds though, a real young Burt Reynolds. Yeah,
a real young Burt Reynolds. I did see that. Yeah.
Yeah.
This is this movie is, at least in recent, certainly a mid-century sci-fi classic, well known in its own right. But I can say in my certainly in the last couple of decades, I'll say, certainly in the last 10 years, since people have started to think about John Carpenter's The Thing, which is kind of an unofficial remake, or at the very least based on the same source material, which I should mention is the 1938 novella by John W. Campbell called Who Goes There? It's based on the same story, and it takes a lot of influence from the movie. John Carpenter's The Thing, in the last decade has started to, I don't want to say just started to receive the credit it deserves, but it has gotten to the point where, like, once upon a time, when it first came out, it was not really well thought of outside of, the practical effects, was considered to be, a giant commercial failure.
Yep.
And then over the years, people started to appreciate it more and more. Obviously, the VHS craze helped a lot. And then people started to realize how wonderful this movie is. And I want to say really over the last decade is since I've watched it, go from that to, this might be the greatest horror movie ever made. Like, like people really, and you know what, if somebody made that argument, for me, it's up there. Like, we've had that conversation. I'm a huge Carpenter fan, and this and Halloween are like my two, well, not the movie we're talking about tonight, but the movie we're talking about now, which is Carpenter's The Thing, is right up there for me. But since this kind of phenomenon of people really like giving it more and more praise, now I see more conversation around the 51 film. Like, before that, like, you maybe see it on like, some sort of like sci-fi nostalgia page, or, they would talk about it on, Monster Party or something, where they talk about more like, 50s, 60s, 70s sci-fi, something like that. So excited to see it getting a little bit more eyes on it.
Yeah. Forbidden Planet and a few others, The Black Hole. It's always a film that comes up all the time. When people are doing like nostalgia lists of the time. And also, like, if you want to talk about the politics of like the Red Scare and McCarthyism, it's another film that falls into that category. So it gets talked about. It gets talked about a lot, with that, as well as The Day the Earth Stood Still. So
yes, for sure.
So it comes up a lot from that. But yeah, there was a period of time. And I think for us, again, because we lived through the 90s, we for sure saw this movie probably fucking 5 times at least on TNT. Just because.
They played all the time. I mean, USA Up All Night or something like that. This would absolutely pop up on there from time to time. I will tell you the first time that I was introduced to it is because it is a movie that is being watched in John Carpenter's 1978 Halloween. Whenever Jamie Lee Curtis is babysitting, the kids in the background are watching this movie. Lindsay, thank you, Bob. Yeah, when Lindsay is sitting on the couch, and you can hear like the voiceover in the background. You can like see the scene where they are like standing in a circle, kind of laying out the shape of the ship in the ice. Like that scene is in the background. So that was the first time I was introduced to it. So that was like a little bit. And if I remember, do you see the title card? I think too in Halloween, that burn away title card. I think maybe a moment of it. Maybe in 78 Halloween.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I'm trying to think of what all you see. Because also you see Forbidden Planet later in the film.
Yeah. But in any case, that was the first time I was introduced to it. And that was like a little bit of trivia for John, for Halloween nerds. It's like, what movie are they watching when Laurie is off, getting ready to carve jack-o'-lanterns or whatever the hell they were doing.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, just a cozy movie. I have probably seen this movie legitimately a dozen times, probably more.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I love it every time.
Yeah. Yeah. Like I said, I've probably seen it at least like 5 times on and off, just growing up. It's not my favoritist film of that era. Mm-hmm. And I think probably like my favorite is probably Godzilla.
Sure.
Yeah, just the original Godzilla, but it's all in the same vein of like, hey, we're watching, monster movies in black and white on TNT, and just whatever reason, Godzilla clicked with me more, and then I saw more Godzilla on Monster Vision with Joe Bob. So, that's the route I went. I didn't follow the Spaceman stuff as much.
You didn't do space shoot 'em ups.
I still like them a lot, but it just I followed monsters more. Give me the big monsters.
Sure. Well, this let's go down through a couple of the folks in the cast here. We have a few very recognizable people. I would say you will certainly recognize Kenneth Tobey as Captain Patrick Hendry. He's been in a ton of things. He was in Airplane. He was in both the Gremlins movie, The Howling. He was in, of course, Hellraiser Bloodline. Who can forget his amazing performance in Hellraiser: Bloodline from 1996? He's been in quite a few genre things. And just an actor who's been around forever. Just film credits, he's got 91, and I guarantee he's got at least that many in TV too. Mm-hmm. Just a guy who's immediately recognizable to genre fans, I think. You also get the not lesser known, but certainly much less lesser known, and also much less experienced Margaret Sheridan. She's got, I think, quite a bit. Probably done more TV than anything, but I'm trying to see 1 minute to zero. Yeah, she actually doesn't have a really deep. She only has like 11 credits. Oh, really? I thought she did more on TV.
No. She only. I mean, it's partially because she did pass away in 1982, so she died pretty young. But her last credit is Bob Hope in 1964. So yeah. Just to go back to Kenneth Tobey, did you want to try to guess what his last credit was? It's a wild one.
Can you give me a year?
2005.
Oh, geez, 2005. Is it like Piranha 3D or something?
No. It is called The Naked Monster, and he plays Colonel Patrick Hendry.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Call back to his iconic character.
Yeah, but it also has it has Brink Stevens in it.
Yeah.
From the Slumber Party Massacre.
Sure.
She plays Dr. Nikki Carlton. So I guess they're doing something very similar to, I don't know, I have to check this movie out. Seems like they're doing something very throwback, but it's called The Naked Monster, and it looks like it might be like a 50-foot naked person type deal that they got going on.
All right, it's all right. You got me interested.
Yeah.
There's a lot of folks that you would recognize from 50s, 60s, 70s film and TV in here. Robert Cornthwaite, Doug Spencer, James Young, Dewey Martin. Like, these are all faces you would certainly recognize. So, and a lot of them show up in other similar genre films. But the main characters here are Kenneth Tobey as Captain Hendry, Margaret Sheridan as Nikki Nicholson. I think, they do a lot of like the one guy, Doug Spencer's character is Ned Scott. They call him Scotty. And I think the idea is she's, I don't know if she's Dr. Nicholson, but they call her Nikki.
Yeah.
And that, yeah. So, and then you get Dr. Carrington, who's Robert Cornthwaite's character, Doug Spencer as Scotty, and then a lot of red shirts hanging around there as well. So it's interesting because you'll see a lot in this movie. It is a wildly different tone. If you've not seen it, but it's more likely that our listeners who have seen one and not the other would have probably seen Carpenter's The Thing and not seen this. It's crazy because it is such a wildly different tone, and we'll talk a little bit about it. Not nearly as dark, much more like jovial, just like jocular, flirtatious. This is like a drive-in movie, right?
Yeah.
Not nearly as serious and dire.
Yeah,
as The Thing.
Yeah, not as serious, not as dire, not as somber. Like, again, there's the flirtatiousness of it because you have a couple female characters in the movie, and one of them is playing a somewhat a developing love interest. So you have this like a lot of snappy dialogue and a lot of flirtatiousness between the two main protagonists, and then everybody else is also just doing that quick mid-Atlantic snappiness, and everybody has that like that manly man kind of cut to them, with the only person who's a little bit not as manly is Scotty, but even still he'll still throw down everything to pick up a beam and board up a door. But he the only thing that sets him apart is he faints, and that makes him effeminate. And that's it.
The worst thing a man can do. Literally, you could beat your children within an inch of their life, but if you faint, I mean, the shame on your family.
Right.
But it's interesting though. But even Scotty, like, it's a lot of like cracking jokes in the face of death kind of thing. You know what I mean? But despite a completely different tone, you could tell that Carpenter was a huge fan of this movie. Like he's mentioned, like he grew up watching this movie. 50s sci-fi is like what obviously got him into genre films. And he took a lot of things that are relatively subtle strengths of this movie and built them out to a crazy degree. One of them is, and I will admit, I don't know why I haven't, but I'm going to go on thrift books after this and find the original novella, because I can't believe I haven't read it. So I don't know how many of these characters are super deeply fleshed out in the novella, but in comparison to the two movies, Carpenter does take a lot of those roles and takes a lot from what the actors gave the roles in the 51 film and really fleshes them out in a true to that character way in 82's The Thing, which is really, really impressive. And I'll get to some other examples, but like you could tell he just had like such a deep affection for this movie, but then also recognized its shortcomings and pivoted when necessary. Right.
Yeah.
But I am eager to see when I read the novella, and maybe some folks out there who have read it can comment in on social media or whatever in regards to like which of the movies stays closer to the novella, because I don't know that off the top of my head, but I'd be eager to learn that.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I think the Carpenter film sticks closer to the novella.
I thought I remember, because I've read so much about the Carpenter film, but I haven't read, like, I knew the name of the story it was based on, but I just haven't read it. And I think the whole idea of the replicant aspect is in the story, whereas it is not in the 51 film.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of even like in the title, Who Goes There, because it's about like it's about the alien shapeshifts into other people. And I think obviously Carpenter ramps it up by turning it into a fucking head crab that falls out of a guy's body while it eats another man's arms, and then turns into like 5 dogs at once that also has a plant head inside its skull. That's his touch.
but even like the plant, and we're jumping ahead a little bit, but like even the plant aspect of it, because the creature is certainly a lot less threatening in the 51 movie that we're talking about.
Mhm.
But it's very different in the sense that it's not this shapeshifter. It is like a plant person. It's really taking the, it's a very similar to the Invasion of the Body Snatchers idea in that they're like growing pod. It's like a pod person kind of situation almost, where they grow out of like these little pods, and they are sustained on, in this instance, human blood, but we never get the really too deep into it to understand whether or not it's just like certain types of liquid organic matter and it just happened to be blood in this instance or what, but they are they're fed by blood. So anyway, it's just to introduce the characters a little bit here. We get, I mean, this is a great example of it. That kind of snappy mid-Atlantic dialogue you talked about. I think I even used the adjective snappy in my notes as well. It is, but then there's also a lot of like little snide remarks and like talking over people. And like, I just love how it's delivered because it feels very rigid and sometimes even like a stage play, but also natural. Like they pull it off in a way that feels kind of natural, and it reinforces the stereotype that everybody in the 50s actually talked like that, which of course was not the case. But it's like the fact that they're always like just having little side conversations, and sometimes they just almost like I was like, this almost feels like a precursor to like mumblecore. Like it's just like in the background. It's pretty unique the way they do the dialogue in this movie, even compared to some other genre films of the time that have similar themes.
Yeah, it has the quality of Glengarry Glen Ross in that way. With the way that they are all talking over each other, and it is very similar to a stage play, and everybody has a retort for something. Everybody has another line to say. Like it's never a moment where somebody gets stonewalled. No, everybody is quick. Everybody has, a retort, and, nobody gets stunned for the most part.
Yeah. Even
when they do the scenes between Hendry and Nicholson, and, Hendry is trying to like berate her over like a little prank she pulled on him. He's like coming at her, and then she has a retort, and then he comes again and she has another retort. Like you see the ebb and flow back and forth with him, but it just never stops. And it's the interesting thing about this film, because honestly, not a lot happens in it.
Yeah.
But because they pace it so quickly and understand, how to keep things moving, and just if people are always talking, it always feels like something is happening. But actual action is pretty minimal in this film.
It is. And it does a good job of like building up and really kind of like that like economy of the action, I think helps out a lot. But interestingly enough, well, we'll talk about when we get to the end. It does kind of, blow its wad in the penultimate action scene instead of the ultimate action scene. But we'll talk a little bit more about that. But yeah, we get right off the bat introduced to a lot of the characters in one of those little snappy dialogue heavy scenes where they are, you've got Scotty, the reporter. He is at this U.S. Air Force Officers Club in Alaska, and talking to some of the officers there while they're sitting and, drinking and playing cards. And they are talking about some sort of buzz is happening that evening about something that happened up at a research facility or near a research facility in the North Pole. So we get this dialogue between the general and some of his higher ups, and we get introduced to Captain Hendry, and the general sends the Cap up to the North Pole to see what the hell's going on up there. So he's kind of his trusted guy to go up and see what the heck's going on. So I'm always impressed when I watch this movie by how well Carpenter, and I know we're not technically talking about the Carpenter movie, but it really begs the comparison. Really captured the feel of the of the site in the original movie, in the 51 movie.
Yeah.
It looks so similar. I mean, it's bigger and grander and higher budget and stuff in the Carpenter movie, but like it looks so similar. Like the snowed in, but it's still like lived in kind of feel of it. And just like the actual like, you know, architecture of the buildings is so similar. These little like 1-story, like kind of sprawling, kind of almost little campus type of, I don't know, it's campus, that's not the right word, but it's this sprawling kind of facility that's all like 1 story, and it just looks so much like it.
Yeah, it's a bunch of like, you can't build 2 stories because the wind will knock it down. You can't build underground because the ground is frozen. So it's just this flat, you know, like take up as much space sprawl as you can. And everything just gets sprawled out. And like, it's hard to, obviously you get this, you know, overhead from a prop plane shot of, you know, the camp. And it's like, oh, wow, that's pretty big. But you kind of don't know where anything is in it. Like, so the geography is when you get inside, but you still have the sense that everything is big and sprawling, and like you got to run down a bunch of corridors just to get to the next station.
Yes. Yeah. Almost has a what's a good example for like a video game that has like all these branching kind of corridors? Something Zelda. Like Zelda. Yeah. I was gonna say, oh God, what's the nuclear Fallout one? Fallout. Yeah. Yeah. So it reminds me almost like of one of the vaults in Fallout or something like that, you know?
Yeah. Fallout. Metroid is probably another like, good, you know, the way to think about it, because like Metroid has all the places you can get to, and you can only get there with certain elements. You're not ready to go there yet. You have to wait to get the electrified missiles or what the fuck ever to get over there.
Right. Yeah. And so much less happens outside in this movie as compared to Carpenter's film. But you still get that definite feeling of isolation. Although I would say the isolation as a driver for anxiety and fear and mistrust is a theme that Carpenter took to another level. And again, I have a feeling that's probably more in line with the story. Everyone seems pretty happy with just general day-to-day life in the North Pole in the 51 film. And I think that's part of the reason why it's so like cozy, is although there is a berserking vegetable alien coming out after everyone, and is oftentimes just, they don't even know where it is. It's just on the loose. They're always just like drinking coffee and playing grab ass. It's just it's just kind of like, it's not the worst thing that's happened this week kind of thing.
Right. Yeah, exactly. They're already kind of reserved to the idea that things are bad up there, but then they've made it into a thing that's good. Even on the trip up, you're talking about how like Hendry and his crew are the guys to go to. On the trip up, they're flying up and they're just kind of complaining about how Commodore Perry, who, discovered the North Pole, he goes up and he gets to come home once with a jacket full of medals. And they're like, we go up there every 3 damn weeks, It's like, it's just routine for them. So they've become very accustomed to this life, and it doesn't bother them, which is why they're up there playing grab ass, which is why, Hendry has his little on again, off again thing with Nicholson, because they're in this sort of long distance relationship of like, she comes down to Anchorage sometimes, he goes up there to her, and they kind of, they have this flirtatious thing going on. And it doesn't feel any different than somebody driving from Pittsburgh to Columbus for a girl. Sure.
Yeah. We also get introduced to Dr. Carrington, the nerd. And they are very anti-nerd in this movie. They fucking hate nerds in this movie. Dr. Carrington, he is like this world-renowned, I think he says like Nobel Prize-winning scientists. And he gets there and immediately explains to them that there's this giant crash site and radioactivity and yada, yada. We're going to go check it out. So they take the snowshoes, they take the dogs, the sleds, the theremins, and they go out to the crash site, and immediately shit's getting a little spooky out at the crash site. They they see this big thing. There's kind of what looks to be some sort of fin or propeller or something sticking out from the crash site, which has essentially is under assumedly thick ice at this point.
I definitely had the note of like when they all get out of the plane and they're all standing at the edge of the crash site, and it's just them and the dogs, and then just you hear the theremin for the first time, and it's like deploy the theremin.
Yeah, it just made it seem like I like to pretend that was like diegetic sound there, and like they had actually unloaded theremins and they had them on the dog sleds.
Barnes is just in the background playing it. He's like,
he's got both his hands going.
Yeah, are we getting good readings off this or what, Cap?
The higher the Geiger counter goes, the higher the tone on the theremin. But yeah, Scotty, the reporter, he acts as kind of like the layperson in this movie, and you would get that quite often in sci-fi films of the day. Mm-hmm. They would be essentially the conduit that would ask the questions that a layperson would ask, so that the science fiction jargon could happen. Because you always have to have some good sci-fi jargon, and he's the one who's asking the questions. Oh, I love the fact that they probably, and I didn't count it, but I'm going to say it's a good 4, probably 5, maybe more times in this movie that they expound the phrase "holy cats." They always say "holy cats." It's the quaintest thing in the world. Yeah. And I love this. This is the most 50s thing that ever 50'd, is whenever they realize that it's round, it's like, dun, 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 holy cats, it's round. And the whole idea is, of course, I remember watching that for the first time as a kid, or, maybe I'm 12 or something. And I'm like, who fucking cares that it's round? But in my mind, not having watched that much 50s sci-fi at the age of, 10 or 12, I don't realize that like the scariest thing in the world is a flying saucer. Besides an H-bomb is a flying saucer in 1950s. So they're like, holy shit, it's round. It's like they found like 100 corpses when they determined it's round.
Yeah. It's like, because at this point, everything has been depicted as a flying saucer UFO, going back to War of the Worlds and all of that. It's always just like the flying saucer. And then we found our own, and it's real this time.
Yes. Yeah. It was just such a fun, quaint reaction. And so I love that. And as someone who's never, been in the military, I do like to believe this is how things get done in the military, which is just they find something and someone goes, let's blow it up. And then they try to blow it up. And so they're like, let's blow it up with a thermite bomb, because if we're trying to, a potentially, unbelievably valuable to the evolution of our species scientific discovery, the first way we should think about getting it out is give it about 20 minutes of thought and then blow it up. And that's what they do. Yeah. So the Cap and we get this little thing where there are some like moments that they play off as very jokey, which like with hindsight being 2020 in the context of, the modern world get a little dark, like that quick little joking, half animated discussion between Captain and Scotty about the First Amendment. And he's just like, well, it's a freedom of speech. I'm going to do it. And he's like, no, you're not. And he's like, all right, I guess I won't, Cap. Like, it's just like, oh, God, government cover-ups happen so easy.
Yeah. This whole film is kind of peppered with a lot of that, especially because of the tone of, again, science is evil. A lot of this film is science is evil. And
there's stuff we know too much. There's stuff we shouldn't know and shouldn't play God, shouldn't dabble in, and that sort of thing.
Yeah. And technically, the heroes, in this case, the army guys, are right, because they also wind up disobeying orders as well, because the army also wants this tech as well. They want the body they want the body, they want the UFO, they want all of that to study for themselves.
Yeah.
And, so our army guys are technically correct, but yes, just the overall attitude of the film is like, science is evil and science will do bad things, and science has to go checked by other people. Because it can't
no nonsense, red-blooded, white-skinned Americans need to check science, or else the government will feed people to science.
The nerds need to be put in their place.
Yeah, because otherwise they will sacrifice themselves and all of us for science, and the government will feed you to science. And now in the real world in 2025, just replace science with the economy and capitalism, and it's just the exact same principles.
But also science needs to be called as well.
True, but they're not worried. They're by no means trying to sacrifice anybody in the name of science. They literally are like, if a bunch of people die for the economy to be a little bit better, so be it. If a bunch of people if a bunch of people's lives are made dramatically worse, or lose some of their, previously unalienable rights or constitutionally promised rights for the economy to be slightly better, that's fine too.
That's fine. We're okay with that.
Yeah, we're okay with that.
Also get measles.
Also get measles down the libs. Turns out that, as expected, planting a thermite bomb on something that you have no idea about at all, and, could be explosive, could be extremely valuable, could be whatever, is obviously not the right decision for a plan A, at least. And it just fucking explodes. The whole thing explodes and they lose it. However, they do find, encased in the ice, the big old Martian guy down there, and they cut him out in this big old block, not unlike John Carpenter's The Thing, not unlike the remake of Carpenter's The Thing, which I don't remember what year was that in. We've talked about that movie. It's fucking god awful.
2011.
Trash, but 2011. Yeah, I was gonna say 11, 13, something like that. Obviously Dr. Carrington wants to do science on it. And Cap says, "No way, Jose, science sucks." And I love this line. The Cap's like, "No way, Jose." He doesn't literally say that, but he does literally say, quote, "We already pulled one boner out there on the ice."
Yeah.
And I know back then boner meant like a mess up, like a whoopsie daisy.
Right.
But it just sounds funny, and I am gonna laugh every time.
Yeah, that's how language changes.
So yeah, Storm is like making communication shaky. That's a theme throughout. So they're getting periodic, telegraphs from Washington and from Anchorage, and so they're kind of on their own for extended periods of time from a communication perspective. Also, everyone's getting a little bit creeped out because there's a Martian in ice in like one of the storage rooms that they're keeping cold because they don't want it to thaw. So everyone's tensions are starting to get a little bit high. So Cap and Nikki decide to partake in some light bondage just to ease the mood. Which is a strange scene, very strange scene. But basically what it is she has him tied up slightly, like behind, like he's pretending she has him tied up, and then she's just like funneling drinks into down his throat. It's pretty aggressive. Like they're joking about it, but like if you walked in on two people doing that, even people who are like happily married, you'd be like, "What are you guys doing?"
Yeah, what is that?
Is this a thing you guys do? It's making me think different thoughts about you.
Yeah, like this is how you get it started. It's such a strange scene because it is like a behind closed door perversion that just like you wouldn't. I don't know. It's weird to depict it in the 1950s, which is so much about being clear cut, up and down, hetero. Like there's still hetero, but like, yeah, we're doing like Dom subplay, and she's like, "You're gonna drink my drink, you filthy little prick."
You little drink my drink, you little piggy. The idea is that they did set her up that she is a little bit of like a
she's a prankster.
A heart. Well, she is. She's a kind of a free spirit. She's not what a 1950s like prim and proper gal would look like. She's like a hard drinker. Mm-hmm. She's always playing, doing gags and doing bits and fucking with people. And she very much like speaks her mind, and she wears a whole set of pants, just like a man would. So it's like they're trying to build her up as that type of character a little bit. And so she can deal with, the rough edges of the captain. It's actually a pretty like charming little relationship. It is, you just gotta, the context is this movie's from fucking 1951,
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's charming in the sense that like, oh yeah, she's one of the guys, she's, being just one of the boys, and she can drink harder than all of them, and she'll leave you before you wake up in the morning. You won't even know, and you feel bad about yourself, and you go, "Why'd you leave me?" And like, honestly, outside of anything else, Captain Hendry is a bit of a simp. He is. Like, yeah, sure, he's rough and tumble everywhere else. But he's a simp for Nikki.
Oh, yeah, big time. And listen, let me be clear. I would be a simp for Nikki as well.
Same.
She's alarmingly attractive. Anyway, so the enlisted boys over there are taking turns guarding. Not unlike the it's interesting because in the 82 film, it's kind of like mostly scientific folk, and then some like engineers and like kind of tradesmen type people. Mm-hmm. And then you have your pilot. And then there's really only like one or two people that are kind of like military connected. In this environment, there are basically like two camps. It's the science nerds and the army guys. That's kind of what you have. Right. And then there are, with the army people, there's like a doctor and a nurse, and doctor and or nurse, I forget. And then you have Nikki, who's like kind of I don't know what is kind of her role. She's on the science side.
I think she's Dr. Carrington's like assistant.
Yeah, she's like a research assistant kind of thing, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, but it is very much like two camps of the army and the science nerds. And the army guys are taking turns guarding, the big block of ice with the Martian Man in it. And I think his name's Bob, but he's a real fucking dummy. And he is, they have an electric blanket. He does the one thing you shouldn't do, which is thaw the ice out completely. If you had like imagine a like 1.25 ton block of ice, it would feel, if you're in a -40 room or whatever it's supposed to be, you could probably just not thaw it completely. But he somehow thaws it completely by accidentally throwing a electric blanket on the ice, and then not looking at it again, the thing he's watching, for at least 3 hours. Like he just literally throws an electric blanket off it, turns his back and go, "I'll be facing this direction for the next 3 hours." Meanwhile, the thing
happens behind me,
completely just dripping. Meanwhile, this has got to be the most, the world's dumbest guard combined with the world's hottest electric blanket.
Right.
It's just a perfect storm situation. But the spaceman does pop out without, again, even causing him to look over his shoulder. And until he turns around, sees him, we don't see him yet, but he's startled, and then just pulls out his 45 and starts blasting from the hip like a psycho and runs out of the room. So the worst guard job anyone has ever done guarding anything.
Yeah, exactly.
Like bank truck guards in Batman comics do a better fucking job of guarding than this guy.
I love after this, he's running through the base, just screaming for anybody who'll listen. And he runs into
just with a gun.
Just with a gun. Yeah, exactly. He runs into the mess hall, and he's screaming at people, and like he's still holding the gun, pointing it like he's ready to shoot. And and he comes up to Captain Hendry and is like yelling at him, telling him everything that's going on. And if you've ever watched Plan 9 from Outer Space, you are very aware of the very specific gun acting in that film. I appreciate that Hendry noticed that the gun was being trained on him and that he takes it and moves it out of his hand. Like you can watch him point the gun away from him. He's like, we're not doing this right now. I don't.
We're not doing the just literally picking your nose with a firearm like Plan 9 style.
Yeah. So either that's just good blocking and they understood, like this character is, obviously full of fear and isn't noticing that he has a gun in his hand, or it's really, really good improv. And he said, let's get this gun off of me. Let's not train this on me.
And so obviously Captain blasts back up. Hey, we got to figure out what's going on. Grabs the posse, gets his gun, busts in, and we just see this creature, which we don't really get a good look at. Besides, it's a large man essentially, just dives out the window, and into the storm, and we see it have this tussle with some of the sled dogs. And then runs off, and they find that it has left one of its arms behind. So the dogs it killed, I think, several of the dogs.
Yeah.
And then also the dogs did manage to rip off one of its arms. So
he just really Daryl Dawkins windmill jams one of them too.
He does. So it's like from a distance and you just kind of see a silhouette, but it's some great physical acting of a big guy just out there, just treating like about 5 dogs like they're WWF wrestle buddies, just fucking like suplexing them all over the place, bonking their heads together, just doing wild stuff.
Yeah.
So they take the arm back inside and they're examining the arm, and they Dr. Carrick, being the like arrogant science douche that he is, he kind of beats around the bush forever and then finally comes out with us and essentially explains that the creature's physiology is that of a plant, basically, as opposed to a human. There's no nerve endings, there's no a circulatory system, any of that stuff. It is it's more like a vegetable, which is certainly where Carpenter strayed, but he did keep part of that in the creature designs, where there are vegetal elements like vines and kind of fibrous types of things in the creature design in the 82 film. But it's seemingly a little bit closer to the story in that it's obviously shapeshifter. And in this instance, it's just a big vegetable boy.
There was no mention of an intellectual carrot.
No. He's a big old he's a big beefy vegetable boy, which, in fairness, as much as I love this movie, is much less scary than a replicant that infiltrates other life forms completely undetected. Just big beefy vegetable boy is a little bit less scary with a big old head. But it's more quaint, and it's more, it's what you would expect from a 50s, sci-fi film.
Yeah.
But
we're still years and years away from Biollante. But it is just, it is weird that they just said they went with this kind of role of it being a vegetable and being like, I think the idea was to explain that it's vegetable like, but it seems like everybody else gets hung up on that. Especially Scotty.
Oh, yeah.
Scotty is like really hung up on it being, a super carrot of some sort. And, he has a bunch of lines in this scene where they're explaining it that he's just
fucking trolling, really.
Yeah. Yeah. But he goes, he tells Dr. Carrington, he's like, now, if you would have told me all this before, I would have said you were stuffed full of wild blueberry muffins. It's like, what the hell kind of
wild. And he gets a full-on chuckle from the whole group.
Yeah. Like, this is why it's so quaint as like 1950s. Even earlier, before Scotty throws a 100% earnest harumph when in discussions about how like the radio is, not working, and he can't get his story out, and he knows that his he knows he's getting scooped by the outside world because he can't get the story out, and he throws a legitimate harumph about this. But also he talks about how like his boss is going to kill himself, so it's just
he goes, he's going to put a gun in his mouth or something. I forget exactly what he says, but
he clearly describes a suicide. He's like, my boss is going to kill himself.
Scotty's a wacky character. He's certainly a little bit more cartoonish than everyone else in the movie. So the hand that's been on the board, which this was obviously the inspiration. Again, I don't know how much, which direction it goes in the story, but very reminiscent of the examination scene. That's very famous in the 82 film, where the big chompers open up in his chest. But in this instance, it just starts moving. The hand starts moving, and he explains that it had, been drinking up the dog blood that was on it. So you can see some of those building blocks that'll evolve into, the super fleshed out 82 film. Yeah. So they go out looking for the thing. Carrick obviously wants to communicate with it, is like, we got to try to talk to it. And of course Cap wants to, blow its tits off. So the whole idea is, I want to talk to it. I want to do science on it. Cap's like, no, we're going to set it on fire and blow it up and piss on it. So this is the struggle for the rest of the movie.
Carrington's convinced that, like, because it came from another world, it must be intelligent and you must be able to communicate with it, which is generally it's a fine assessment to take.
Sure.
But it hasn't shown any sense of trying to communicate yet. It's only screamed and double hand jammed dogs. Like, it's not. It's not trying to communicate.
All it did was put Scruffy in the Campbell clutch, and you think it's a fucking genius. No, I think the assessment is that if it traveled millions of miles in, and was able to make it, or millions of light years or whatever, and make it to our planet, that it must have some sort of highly advanced technology, which must mean its civilization is highly intelligent. But nothing else would suggest that at this point.
No, because it went outside. It said, "Break your back and make you humble."
Yeah. It just did a fucking belly to back suplex on 3 dogs at the same time. So they do. The science nerds have a little powwow in the greenhouse. Because they figure, hey, it's going to go to the greenhouse, because they said it would look for like open soil. And they find a dead dog that's been drained in, I think it looks like a compost pot. It's like a composter or something.
Yeah. Just like a little tool shed.
And Carrick wants to keep it secret and then wait in the greenhouse for it to come back and not tell the army guys, because he's worried that they're going to obviously come in and try to kill it. So, then they're in there having a little chit chat. Nikki's always making coffee for everyone. Like, no matter how dire the circumstances, she's always got a hot pot of Joe on, which was, I think, was considered like a personality trait for a favorable, partner in 1950s. It would be like smart, kind, attractive, makes a ton of coffee. Like, that's just something that was on the resume of a potential wife material in 1950. Was you just always have to you basically have to be like a short order diner server with coffee for all the men in the room at all times.
Yeah. How likely is she to have coffee, cigarettes, and or cocktails available for everybody in the room?
Exactly. Like, you're a scientist, but also you got to be a good hostess.
Right, yeah.
Little sandwiches with the crust cut off.
Entertaining was a personality trait in the 50s.
Exactly. Yeah. They're just chit chatting, and one of the scientists who was there with Carrick just busts into the room and is doing the clue routine, which is just like, they got him, and just collapses on the floor, and his clothes are all ripped up, and he's got a big goose egg on his head. Look like somebody bopped him with a big cartoon hammer. And he explains that a couple of them science boys were in pretty brutal we never see it, but he explains that they were killed, throats slit, and hung upside down and bled dry, which up until this point, pretty brutal knowledge to gain, because nothing like that has happened up to this point.
No.
And we're like, whoa, things just went up a notch, and they're like, bummer.
Yeah, the film is strangely brutal in a couple ways. I mean, one, a dismembered, arm is a lot. The way that dog falls out of the tool shed is pretty brutal as well.
Tongue hanging out, the whole
yeah, it just like flops out, and it's like, whoa, So and then we have this description of like how they died in a fucking Predator movie. So it's a lot. I do want to point out though, this character, this is the scene where you get to point at the screen because he says the title of the movie.
Yes.
He says, "The thing struck at me," and you go, the thing.
It is. He said it. Free Willy. But he comes in, and then of course the only medical attention they give him is just to keep hitting him with the smelling salts, which I thought was funny. He's severely concussed, and they're like, "Here, hit this." It's very unpleasant, I imagine, with like a massive head wound, head injury, brain injury. So they go to the door. They go and open the door to the greenhouse room, and we get our first look at the thing. And it's this big hulking, kind of wearing like the full suit, kind of like honestly, kind of like Fallout looking suit a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah.
Like they would wear in the vault. But it's a big hulking thing with like kind of claw-like hands, which was kind of interesting. And I don't know if that's because that hand had just grown back. I was never sure that was what, because it almost looks webbed. You know what I mean? Like the fingers almost look webbed. And I was like, is that because that hand is still growing back? Is that what we're supposed to think?
No, but it never. No, I think they're both webbed up, and like they're. Yeah. I mean, they didn't put a whole lot into this creature design. It's just a big guy with a head prosthetic and then some claw hands. It's not I don't know, it's not the most impressive.
No, he is physically intimidating looking in that he's kind of like I said, this big kind of hulking guy, but in any case, they slam the door on his arm and his hand, and they eventually trap him in there. And then the one dude just starts blasting from the hip with like whatever like minigun he has, which doesn't really do much, obviously, but he seems pretty proud of himself. Carrick was obviously responsible for his friends' brutal deaths at this point. So Cap has some firm words for him. It's like, you got to go to your room, buddy. And he's like, I won't. He's like, yeah, you will, you fucking nerd. Get out of here. And then, of course, the doc's just like, but everyone's still pretty jokey and relaxed at this point and just sipping on coffee and ripping cigs and having a good time, despite the fact that they were just told that two of their colleagues were hung upside down and bled out like fucking pigs, like in the greenhouse.
Well, I think in fairness, one, those weren't their boys. Those were science nerds on the science side.
Well, even the science guys don't seem that concerned about the whole thing.
I think some of those science guys are psychos anyway. When we get to the end of the film, a lot of those science guys are fucking psychos.
So Carrick explains that essentially he planted some little like material that he got from the arm and watered it with blood. So this, again, you get this so I'm eager to learn whether the whole plasma storage and using it to water the creatures, seeds and start to grow little pods, which is what Carrick does in the 51 movie. And then of course the blood bags, and then using it for the infamous blood test that Kurt Russell's character does in 82. Like, I wonder which direction the story took it, and I'd be eager to learn like which one was closer and which one kind of evolved from the other. You know what I mean? Because it's interesting that there's still this like very keen element, like important element of the blood, being missing.
Right.
But anyway.
Yeah. I think that's a part of the original story.
Yeah, I got the feeling. It just feels like Carpenter's is more accurate in that way to the story, or more true to the story. But that explains how he grew his arm back too, is because these grow really fast. Like within 5 hours, all these little pods are already happening. So they show these little like breathing pods, and then they speculate that the thing is also growing more of its own little pods, probably in the greenhouse by now. Nikki shows the Cap the notes that Carrick took about what he was doing, and it's funny because people have been killed at this point, and there is a big giant alien creature loose in the facility, but this whole thing still kind of plays out a little bit like an office drama, like a corporate drama or something, where he's like, well, I shouldn't tell you, but I do have these files you should look at. And he looks at the files and he's like, thanks for sharing these files with me. I'm going to go confront somebody about these papers, and then runs out of the room. It's like,
she's like, I should stop you, but I should stop you. And he's like, thanks for not stopping me.
I didn't stop. I should stop you, but your butt chin's too handsome. At this point, it's all the Cap has made up his mind. The science guys are the enemy too, and fuck them. And we're just gonna go kill this thing because we don't know what it's gonna do. And that's the whole like pathos of the movie is things that we don't understand. Like, kill things we don't understand before they kill us, and don't get too cute, because that's how you die. Like, it's just this real like folksy, old fashioned, like mid-century type of jingoism that's just like so quaint.
And in this case, like, they're absolutely correct. Like, in the day the Earth stood still, they're wrong. And that's what makes that film like stand out, is because they're absolutely wrong to, go after the aliens, because the aliens were at bringing peace. In this film, you might as well think of the Thing as like Doomsday from the Superman comics. And Doomsday was a prisoner shot out into space because they couldn't control him on his planet. They're like, get this fucking thing out of here. So you might as well think of the Thing as like, get this fucking thing out of here. And then it crashed into our planet, and there is no reasoning with it. You just got to kill it.
Well, that's what I love the Doomsday comparison, because I was thinking about that earlier when we were saying that Dr. Carrick automatically assumes that it's intelligent because it has, the advanced technology and stuff. But what if it was just like the biggest, dumbest idiot galoot from its planet that they couldn't control? Like, it's actually 8 times bigger than anybody on its planet and 50 times dumber, and they just couldn't control it, so they just shot it out into space. Like, not unlike Doomsday. And it landed here and was like, fucking dogs, pal, slam.
You know what this thing is? It's the Despiser, Brian.
It is kind of the Despiser. It's the dumbest of its species. And you know what? Even the funnier thing would be, like, I like to imagine in my my fanfic of this movie is that the one thing more than anything else that the thing loved to do on its planet that it used to get in trouble for was suplex dogs. And it got here, and the first thing it found was like, oh shit, so many dogs. This planet rules. Pow,
Dude.
pow, pow.
They got those things that I had at home. Like at home. Like back home, and it's like a dog. It has like 6 legs, and it probably spits acid or whatever. But yeah, as soon as he gets here, he sees it, and he's like, "Oh yeah, I remember those. It's go time."
Yeah, these things are great. Oh, it's just fluffy versions of the fucking things I used to suplex at home. But yeah, so yes, Nikki and the Cap are still despite their friends being drained pig carcasses, like they're still flirty and having coffee and stuff. But they do discover that it has escaped the greenhouse. So their first idea, and they treat it like it is the most brilliant idea in the world, which there's this one guy who I think he's the like evil mastermind of the whole thing. He's like this handsome, kind of dark haired, stocky little, stocky little guy, and he always is like played to be very charming as like almost the second in command, like guy who always has the ideas that the captain takes. And he's just like, hey Cap, got a pretty fucking good idea, hear me out, we fucking burn it. And he's like, genius. So they just go get a bunch of kerosene, and this is the best scene in the movie by far. And really, to this day, every time I see it, it's so impressive, but also so dangerous looking.
So dangerous.
Crazy dangerous. So they basically know what door it's going to try to come in, and they wait at that door, and they have like torches and just literal buckets of kerosene. So when it opens up the door, they shut the lights off so it can't see them. And they just douse it in kerosene and hit it with a freaking torch, and it goes up like crazy. And then every time it starts to burn out, they hit it with another bucket of kerosene, and it is the longest full body burn. Every time they throw kerosene, half the room sets on fire, including like people's legs who aren't part of the burn. Like it's crazy.
This is always so interesting to watch because, like you're saying, it's so fucking dangerous. Probably the funniest part is at one point the thing has Nikki cornered, and she's holding up a mattress to protect herself, and Hendry takes another bucket of kerosene and throws it at the monster, and it goes past the monster and lands on the door next to Nikki. Yeah. And you can't see whose faces is who. Like, I don't even know if that's actually Hendry at that point throwing the bucket of kerosene. I think they turned the lights off and then had a bunch of stunt actors like greased up with the Vaseline and all that. Yeah, I think that's how they did it.
They have to have because otherwise it would have been so. I mean, it's still dangerous, but that has to be how they do it. But I do like the assumption that it was the captain who threw an entire bucket of kerosene at Nikki.
At his girlfriend. It's either the captain or it's his crew chief Barnes, the guy who you were talking about who came up with this plan. It's one of the two of them. And they throw the bucket of kerosene and it goes past the monster and it hits the door and it hits the wall. And like after the monster escapes from that and they come back to the big room, it's all the regular actors again. And that wall isn't on fire anymore, despite it just being like completely engulfed.
Yeah, it was one of those things where it's like, I don't know that they're like, they just had the single cam and they're like, point, and we're going to do this once and we got to get it because we ain't doing this again. So what they got was what they got. And it's really an awesome, chaotic, just the light, it's lit so well. The idea of turning the lights off makes a lot of sense. Like, I guess tactically for the characters, but also it makes this contrast between the burn and the dark room like so bright and chaotic. It's honestly one of my favorite just scenes, period, of all like genre films.
Yeah, it's so cool because you can probably never do it again. Like there's too many actors and it's just too fucking dangerous. Nobody will sign off on that. That's insane.
And it's so, again, like it seemed to be well planned out, but also I just think they also just got lucky that it just worked perfectly.
Yeah,
like worked better. I guarantee the first time they saw it, they were like, "Fuck, that is so much better than we thought it was going to look." And then the thing just is on fire and runs and blasts out into the snow. And does its escape, which is run through the wall like the fucking Kool-Aid Man into the snow. And then so that should have been the climax. That should have been how they finished it, but it's not. We still have like 20 minutes left in the movie, and although there are some fun scenes left, that is the peak of the movie 100%.
Right.
And most of the time in 50s, 60s genre films, not only does the peak of the movie happen, but the movie literally ends 3 minutes later. And in this, there's like 20 plus minutes left. And it's a detriment overall to the movie. But the one thing I realized for the first time watching it this time was when they realized, they're like, hey, we didn't kill it. It got away. Obviously, we're gonna have to do something else. And they decide they're going to electrocute it this time. They call for the electrician, and it's Rivers Cuomo. He just walks over to them, and he's just like, it's just full on lead singer of Weezer, Rivers Cuomo. And even he's got all the little snappy comebacks too. Oh yeah, there he is.
Yeah, this is the guy I wanted to talk about. So we've talked about the army guys and we've talked about the science guys, and who really saves the day in this film is the engineers. Yeah. And and engineers are psychopaths. They have all the formal training and understanding of math and science to do things, but they have none of the morality to hold them back because they go, oh, sick. Hey, here's our opportunity to build a hallway sized electric chair. Isn't that sick?
Yeah. There's one thing I know about a large percentage of my friends are engineers, because I was despite not being an engineer, I was in a fraternity in college that was 90% engineers. Like it was all like university scholars for the most point, and almost all engineers. And I was like one of the few that were not engineers. And one thing about engineers is they love to build things, but they never stop to think. They love to figure out if they can build something, but they never stop to think if they should.
They are both morally bankrupt and have no sense of consequences.
The amount of drunken, idiotic floats and things that we built in college that almost resulted in, student deaths were astronomical. But this one, imagine in this particular engineer looks exactly like Rivers Cuomo from the Buddy Holly video. I mean, absolutely straight out of it.
It's 1-to-1.
Yeah. And they decide to electrocute him. So they're figuring this out, and it kills. They're basically building like just an electrical, almost like a bug zapper, but the entire floor is a bug zapper, kind of is what they're trying to do. But then the floor and the walls and the ceiling. Yeah. So it's like it's going to go through. It's like one of those little bug zappers that it's going to walk through. So it is smart enough to somehow, interrupt their oil supply, so all of their heat goes off. So they start to get really cold really fast, which obviously adds to like a sense of urgency. And they have this plan where they're going to barricade other doors and force him to this particular entrance, and then build this giant, mosquito zapper. And then Carrick once again pleads and says like, we can't do this. Science is the most important thing, and bee boo ba boo boo boo. And they just literally do like a harass the nerd session where they all like circle around him and just like point and laugh at him and tell him he's a nerd until he shuts up. Yeah. And then it busts in the door as you would expect, and it grabs this big hunk of wood. And just at that point, Carrick kills the generator. And this is a really interesting part that shows like how desperate Carrick is, but it gets resolved so quickly. Yeah. So Carrick goes, all of a sudden the lights turn off. And of course the thing just busted through the wall or through the door, and it's got a big hunk of wood, and they're all like staring at it, and they're going to try to lure it into its little bug zapper. And all of a sudden electricity goes out. They're like, fuck, somebody, even almost before it's fully dark in the room, a person jumps out and goes, Carrick did it. And they're like, fuck. They run back as they walk in. This whole thing takes 8 seconds. Carrick is standing there with a gun. He's like, I can't let you do this. And then some guy just like punches him and grabs the gun. And Cap's like, good job. Turn it back on. And it's back on. The whole thing is like under 10 seconds.
It's even funnier because the one guy runs out and he goes, Carrington shut off the power, and he has a gun. And then everybody runs in and they see him. They shine a flashlight on him, and he's holding the gun. And it's none of the guys who just arrived. It's somebody who's behind him who just reaches forward and grabs the gun off Carrington and says, okay, no, we're not doing that. It's like,
give me the gun, nerd.
Yeah. Dorcas.
You're not allowed you're not allowed to have guns, dork. Just takes it off him, slaps him in the face.
And then it's back on. It's just so funny that it wasn't even any of the people who were called for help and arrived. It's a guy who was already there and just like, no.
It's just a guy eating a sandwich beside him. It's like, give me the gun, dick. Shoves him down.
Pulls his underwear up.
but Carrick's not done. Carrick he comes out one last final desperate, last ditch effort. He tries to talk. He approaches the thing, tries to talk to it, tries to reason with it, pleads with it. Like, we know you're wiser than us. We have so many questions for you, and blah, 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 blah. And for his trouble, he gets a fucking European uppercut. He just gets fucking knocked across the room. He just gets fucking flare chopped, just launches him across the room.
Again, how does he not figure it out at this point? The monster is doing nothing but wielding a big giant 2x4 like Hacksaw Jim Duggan. He is not above us. He's not above us evolutionarily.
This is not the guy you should be talking to. This is not the top brass. This is the Hacksaw Jim Duggan of Martians, and you are going to get chopped down. It's just what's going to happen.
This is noted dog wrestler from another planet.
This is top 20 ranked amateur dog wrestler on Mars.
Yeah. Sure, he was able to steal a spaceship, and he's probably stole a spaceship and got away. He was on Space Cops as he was running away on a high-speed chase, and then he crash landed here.
He was on space meth, and he stole a spaceship and crashed it. And then ended up just falling asleep in the ice and getting frozen.
It's like how you think like if you go back in time, you would be so much better than like all the people back in time, because you would know all this stuff, like know about phones, but you couldn't actually build a phone back then. You're not smart enough to do that. Yeah. So that's who this guy is. He knows about all the advancements in technology that his planet has, but he's a fucking dog wrestler. So he's not bringing us the cure to cancer.
Yeah, he'll just say we have better stuff than you. He can't help you build it.
No.
The whole time. Now I'm just imagining the scene from or that sketch from I Think You Should Leave, where he's on like the Love Island type of thing, but all he cares about is
the
zip line. But it's just him the whole time. And he's like, tell us more about like the technology, and like you guys mastered intergalactic travel, and you obviously have incredible you have some sort of technology where you don't you've evolved past fossil fuels. Like, tell us about that. And he's just like, I don't remember, dude. Where's the dogs at? Like, all he cares about is wrestling the dogs.
I don't know, dude. I'll tell you later. Like, can I go see those dogs? Can I go outside?
And they're like, you're too rough with the dogs. We're not going to have any dogs left. You keep snapping their backs.
No, it's all right. They like it.
They like it until then their back breaks. I don't know. Yeah, it does, as you might expect. We get this little scene of they're just getting a little closer, but it does walk into their giant, bug zapper, and they zap the fuck out of it. Like, they're like, I think that's enough. And Cap's like, that's not enough until it's fucking literal charcoal. And he zaps it until it is like a shriveled pile of charcoal. And then Scotty faints like a damn pinko ladyboy. He just fucking gets the vapors.
Which is weird because so earlier, like while they're building, or like right before this final showdown, Scotty made a reference to something that I didn't fully understand, so I looked it up. They're like, "Are you sure you're prepared for this, Scotty?" And he's like, "Yeah, no, I was there for Judy Smith and I forget the other name." But
Like, he said, and he says something about it. Doesn't he say like, does he say Hiroshima? He says something else too. Yeah, that's like one that I reckon.
Yeah, that's other things. He was a reporter. He reported on like Okinawa and a couple other like war zones, but also he mentioned these two specific names, and it was two like it was a woman and a woman and her like boyfriend who killed the woman's husband, and they were both sentenced to the electric chair in the late 1920s. And he said he was there at that execution is what the reference is. So like he watched both of these people die by electric chair in a fairly brutal fashion. Mm-hmm. But the monster is a little too far. The monster gives me the vapors when I see that die. I watched this woman fucking get killed, but the monster not so great.
That monster, they really zapped him down to a big fucking crispy, piece of charcoal. They then obviously burn everything. And Nikki makes some coffee. So that's how it should end. And then all his buddies try to and Nikki try to pull this whole marriage grift on the Cap, saying like, hey, you should settle down and blah, blah, blah. And he's just, he's kind of not having it, whatever. It's just supposed to be this little flirty scene. Mm-hmm. And then Scotty then calls, and they finally, the communication clears up. He calls in and I got a story for you, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, all right. And apparently all the reporters and everybody's in the room, and he starts to deliver this big, seemingly like rehearsed speech about, going to explain the whole story. And it's interesting because Carrick was the villain. I mean, he, at the very least, his negligence resulted in the brutal deaths of two of his, underlings. But they all kind of agree that it's cool of Scotty to cover for Carrick. Yeah.
It's a weird, I don't know what this message is supposed to be per se, because like we're headed towards McCarthyism, where like you are supposed to be selling out anybody who defects. And in that last moment when, the thing gives him the flare chop, Carrington is essentially selling out everyone else. He's selling out America for communism, because he thinks, the thing represents
Carrington. I think I was calling him Carrick at some point.
Yeah, you've been calling him Carrick the whole time, but people know what you're talking about.
All right, sick.
I've been saying Carrington.
I think it just auto-corrected on me at some point, and all my notes then after that were just Carrick, and I just stuck with it.
Yeah, you're just thinking about one of our lovely Pittsburgh suburbs. That's all.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But yeah, the thing is kind of representing communism in this moment of Carrington is kind of giving himself over. He thinks it's the better way to be. He thinks it's the better life that can be offered to you. And what this movie is obviously saying is communism is just a fucking brute. It's not the better life. And so it is weird that Scotty doesn't sell him out at the end. He's like, Dr. Carrington's recovering from, these wounds. And everybody's like, that's the way to go, Scotty. Don't be a snitch. Don't sell him out.
Yeah. They all kind of give him the nod, like, way to not be a snitch, Scotty. It's interesting because it finishes with the, like this iconic moment, this iconic line that a lot of people will remember. And I'm interested to see if it's in the book, but he says, like, watch the skies everywhere. Keep looking, keep watching the skies. Like, it's just like this line that it ends on that line and it's become a pretty iconic, memorable line in sci-fi. But right before that, Scotty, and this is such a 50s thing to do. They do it in The Day the Earth Stood Still. I believe they just do. It's just something they do a lot. I think we've even talked about before when we've talked about some of these movies is they just learned that giant plant people exist outside the Earth, right? Mm-hmm. But Scotty still feels the need to mention that a Bible story is true. Like, how can you have just learned giant plant people exist, but you're still a Bible literalist?
Yeah.
Because he gets something like, today, just like, Noah did, a few brave people saved humanity. And it's like, bitch, what? You still think Noah did? First of all, you thought that in the first place. You thought the actual ship was real. And I know people think that. And just for the record, my book, that's wild.
That's
you
crazy.
Shouldn't believe that. You shouldn't believe that.
All the animals. That's crazy.
Like also, pretty uncool of God, first of all, just saying. But even if you did believe that it literally existed and that it was a lesson or a fable or anything, it literally existed, and then you just learned about fucking plant people from Mars? You think God made those plant people from Mars? Why are you a plant person? Is there a different God that looks over Mars? Because did he make plant version and our God made blood version?
And why would he bring him here? Why wouldn't he tell us about them beforehand? Maybe it heads up on this.
Is this an exchange? Is this an exchange program between Mars God who made plant people and our God? It just doesn't add up.
No.
And it's just interesting. They always had to do that in the 50s because when sci-fi stuff happened, like speculative fiction stuff happened, in those worlds, they still needed to make sure that we knew that the good Americans in the movie believe in God.
Right. Yeah. And that's a very more movie focused thing of that happening. Yeah. The funny thing about this is, like, Scotty doesn't even use it correctly because he goes, just as Noah saved everybody with the ark back in the day, some brave scientist here saved them with an arc of lightning. And it's like, that's not the same arc, you idiot. You fucking bald fuck. That's not
different
how
type of
works.
Also, no, it didn't save everybody, just saved a few people, but ultimately kept the species going, sure, but let 99.9999999% of people perish because that was God's will.
And now we're all super inbred because there was only like 6 people on that boat. You fucking asshole.
That's why I have to wear glasses, and one of my ears is higher than the other one.
We're still getting over our inbreeding.
Yeah.
2,000 years later.
Just the last tail end of it. Anyway, that is The Thing from Another World from 1951. A fun, charming, lovely mid-century sci-fi movie that I've watched 100 times and probably will watch another 100 times. So fun stuff. once again, Dan, thanks for the suggestion. I wish we would have done that so that I didn't have to watch Sharkenstein. But here we are. That I'm never getting that time back.
Delayed.
All right. Anything else before we wrap up this son of a bitch in minisode, Steven?
Yeah, just one thing I found interesting, just kind of going back and looking back at the history of the film. I believe I came across an article talking about how John Carpenter is one of the people who ascribes to the theory that Howard Hawks actually directed this film, not Christian.
Oh, yes. I remember that now. Yeah. I remember that in boy, where would I have heard that? I think it might have been a podcast or a documentary or something that I was watching about the making of the Carpenter's the Thing.
Sure.
But they did a little bit of a deep dive into this. Yeah. I've heard that. I don't want to say it's a conspiracy. I've heard that theory before.
Yeah. I mean, it's not terribly important, but like, because Howard Hawks, like he was a huge director from the day and directed things, like The Big Sleep. But yeah, he was on set the entire time, and then Christian would just defer to him. So it was just like not too different from a lot of other producer and director roles, especially because Christian was Howard Hawks' editor for a long time. Christian was just getting a little bit of a bump.
Sure.
He was, Hawks was trying to give him the rub with this film.
Yeah. Yep. Fun flick. By the way, one last reminder. I don't know if I mentioned at the top of the show, but we did talk about how we're doing the Creatures from the Deep, and we are going to pick our movies next week, both myself and Steve, as well as our guests, Sarah and Kelly from the Final Girls podcast. And Steve and I were talking before we jumped on. I want to go a little, forgive the pun, I want to go a little deeper, so if this is Creatures from the Deeper or Deep, that's what we should, because it's the second version. So Creatures from the Deep, parenthesis, ER. But throw some suggestions our way, because I've got about 4 or 5 movies that I would like to do, but looking for some deeper dives. So if you got any suggestions I should check out in the next week or so between, before we pick them, let me know. Would be much appreciated.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else?
No, that's about it. That's all I got.
All right. Well, once again, Boils and Ghouls, thanks for joining us for this here mini-sode for the Halloween's Forever crew. I'm Brian.
And I'm Tex.
You said you were Santa Claus.
That was earlier. Now I'm Tex. Hanging out in the radio room with my dog.
All right, fine. Bye.